What nobody thinks about after they refinish their gun. Hi folks, Bob Server from Fusion. Today we're going to go over just some considerations you should think about after you refinish your 1911. And why does this come up? Well, we get quite a few customers again with questions that they'll have a firearm, it's working fine, then all of a sudden they refinish it, they Cerakote it, do something, next thing you know, oh, I have jamming problems, I have this, I have that. Okay, so what we're going to do today is, we use pretty much, we're going to go over all the most common finishes and what you should look at when you get your parts back. What should you do to recondition a few of the parts? Because you're going to find out that the finishes will affect the performance. A lot of times you got to re-break the gun in a little bit, things of that nature. So we'll look at all those little things right now and just think so you can actually look at those. What are the causes? What are the effects? And how to take care of those so you don't get negative effects. Okay, so here we're going to go over a few things. We're going to go over black oxide, which that's going to be real simple for us. We're going to go over our black shield, which is nitro carburizing, nitromelanite, which is a fantastic finish. We're going to go over hard chrome. We're going to go over our Yukon coat, which is basically a Cerakote product. And we'll go over ion bond, okay? I don't have an ion bond gun here today, but we'll go over it anyway. We can explain what to do there. It's basically the same as the nitro carb. So we'll go over the ion bond and nitro carb as just one unit and stuff you should look at. Also, I didn't find a barrel today. We've been running around, so we'll pretend, okay, that the barrel's also nitro carburized or ion bonded, and what you should do with that when it comes back. So here's the first example. Here's a Freedom series that we're customizing for a person, upgrading it with a bunch of things. Chrome and match barrel and our Yukon coat, which is a spray-on style finish for the receiver, the frame, and a bunch of the parts. So one thing I reflect upon is in the past I've had a customer that had one of our Freedom series, shot fine. Next thing you know, I get a call. Oh, I'm having problems with my Freedom series. It will not feed. Okay, that's funny. It has been feeding all along, and is anything broken? No. Okay, so send the gun in. We take a look at it. What I find out is that he's re-Cerakoted all the parts, and items like the feed ramp and that nobody has repolished. So now the bullet nose is just diving into the paint and sticking. So again, these are all these little things that you're going to want to really take a look at, once you do refinishing on any product or have a new finish applied, even to a new gun. So say this firearm here, we'll start with this one. We have chrome. We have the Cerakote style bottom. What am I going to look for? Okay, when I get the parts back and I'm going to start reassembling, first I'm going to look for a frame to slide fit and make sure that's going on there good. I don't have any real heavy impedance of the slide. Sometimes people will gum on the spray coating so thick that you can't even get the slide onto the frame. So what do I do in that situation when it's on so tight? This one's decent, you don't have to do anything with it. So one thing I'll do generally is I take a small razor blade and I actually scrape right down the rails. I just take it, I put one finger on the top, lay the razor blade down, scrape down the side of the rails, and I take some of that paint off of there. Then what I'll do is generally add some oil, just regular either cutting oil or gun oil, and then I'm gonna lay it on the bench, and I'm gonna lay it on, and I'm gonna go back and forth, and I'm gonna lap the frame into the slide. I'm just gonna lap it in until I feel that it's smooth. I feel that I have no hitches in there, and then I can stop. I know I'm ready for assembly there. So that's one thing you really want to look at, is the actual first frame to slide fit. Once the frame to slide fit is completed, I'm going to look at a few other points on the frame. Number one, Mr. Feed Ramp, okay? The feed ramp here, you're going to want to go back in and repolish that feed ramp, because again, you can feel, even though it's a nice finish, you can still feel the frictional coefficient is way different than a polished surface. And you know, again, it's going to have some plasticity to it, so as your bullet drives into it, it's going to get stuck there. It's just going to cause issues. So that's one area. I'm going to look at the feed ramp area, make sure that's polished. I'm also going to make sure that this area here for my slide stop pin is okay, and that I don't have, that one goes in, not too bad, a little bit of issue, but not much. But you want to make sure the slide stop is going in properly, riding properly and freely, because that's another thing that'll end up getting gunked up around the whole edges. Generally, any of the finishes that you spray on, and also excuse me, chrome will be another one that will end up building up on the edges. So generally on the edges of holes, on the edges of your rails, things of that nature, you're going to get a buildup of the finish, and sometimes have to do a little bit of, you know, just going in there with a file or sandpaper. You know, if you have a reamer, I usually use a reamer, but a lot of times to clear the holes. But a lot of times people will use just a little needle file with some sandpaper on it. Also the sear and hammer pin hole, check those. If they're not, you know, if they're too tight, you can't get the pins in. And again, you know, don't just be slamming the pins in, because what happens if you got to slam them in, you're going to have to slam them out. Next thing you know, you're scratching your finish or something when you're doing your tuning, then you're upset. So watch that. So that's really all I really look for, mainly on the frame. Everything else should be pretty good. Again, you know, you're going to check things like your magazine catch and things of that nature in the frame as you're assembling. Make sure, generally the magazine catch, I'll wick a bunch of oil around it, work it back and forth with the spring after I lock it in, just to make sure it's set in there nice and it's moving freely, it's not getting caught or hedged up. That's another thing I've seen, overbuilt finishes on the mag catch area. People slam the mag in, next thing you know the catch is stuck out, and it's because it's stuck on the finish, you know, and your mag's not catching in the gun, it's just falling out. So another thing to look at right there. On the chrome plating, then we'll get into some of the small parts. There isn't a whole lot on the small parts, but a few things we'll look at. On the chrome plating, again, remember, depends on how, if it's, you know, basically a combat fit style gun, you know, you generally won't have any issues. If you have a target match fit gun where, you know, you basically lapped it together, you're probably going to have issues. You're probably going to have to go back in and relap with either oil or relap with some fine lapping compound. And again, just put a little bit of wick of the oil on the rails, a little bit of lapping compound, and back and forth until it's smooth. And you know, you got to remember that the finish on the edges is going to compound. So you look at a rail section here where you have an upper, you know, a lower, and an inner rail. Well, and you also have the bottom. So if you add all that up and say you added a thousandths or a thousandths and a half on the edge, so if you have basically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 contact points there, you know, you just added 5 thousandths of material, and you've added 5 thousandths of material over on this side, 1 thousandths on each contact point. So, you know, or more. Like I said, it could be up to 1.5 thou. I've seen as much. I mean, you can chrome plate, chrome plate gauges up to, you know, 3, 4 thousandths if you wanted to lap them back down and things of that nature. So those are just things you want to look for and be aware of, that could impede the performance of the gun when you know that those products come back from finishing and you're reassembling and retuning the gun. The extractor, you know, generally just slight polishing on the extractor hook, you know, the type of polishing that you like, and polish it to your liking. Slide stop, usually nothing much there. Ejector, usually nothing much there. Sometimes the feet might have a little hard time getting into the holes depending on again, the buildup of the finish material. Then you look at some of the small parts. Your hammer again, I'll go back in and redress the sear notch area here on the hammer. I'll stone it, starting with like a 220 stone and then move down to a 320. We have those stones available on our website. Excuse me. So I'll redress that, retune the hammer a little bit. Usually the strut, thumb safety is usually no concern. Grip safety, usually no concern. Also, you know, the mainspring housing, again, generally no concern. Now the bushing itself, depending on the buildup, again, you'll want to watch on your barrel. You know, this one's a little bit tight, so I'll probably go in there. And what I normally do is just a little bit of sandpaper on a needle file and just roll it in there and just take a little bit of the edge off, because that's generally what it is. Or again, you can oil it up real good and just work it a little bit, and generally it'll work itself in nicely. So that's pretty much on the spray-on products and the chrome. Generally, the chrome is pretty smooth for the most part. I'll show you, I do condition the breech faces when it comes to ion bond or the black shield coatings. Those there, you know, again, is basically you just take an equaling file, you wrap a little bit of sandpaper around it, emery cloth, you know, again, real fine. You can use like 500 generally or something around there. And then you're just going to take it and just a little bit of working the face to take any of the high points off and just bring down the frictional coefficient a little bit. Just makes your feeding and everything much better. So we'll go on to the ion bond and the nitrocarburizing, which again is our black shield. And again, I do basically the same thing. You generally don't get a lot of buildup when it comes to either the ion bond or the nitro, okay? Either way, you're not gonna have generally a lot of buildup. So generally you're not gonna have to do a lot of lapping. I do a little bit of oil lapping on the frame and slide, which I'll just put a little oil in there and lap it back and forth. That's one thing I do. The other item I'll do is on the breech faces. Again, one thing I have found, generally the fresh ion bond, fresh nitro carb, it's going to be a little sticky. And what do I mean by that? It's not that you can feel it sticky. I mean by that is because it's the fresh finish and the crystal structure on the surface until it gets worked in a little bit will be a little bit higher frictional coefficient versus what it was. So again, you might have a gun that fed fine, and then all of a sudden you go ahead and put it all together and you didn't retune anything, and then, oh, it's feeding a little clunky. Well, generally it's because, you know, you're gonna have to finish the face of the breech face again with a little bit of the emery cloth, just really slightly. And you take that down, polish it. I usually do that. I usually oil lap the frame and the slide in a little bit. Sometimes the pin, if the pin is a little tight, you know, you just use a little Scotch-Brite on it and just take it and then just back and forth slightly like that, just a couple of turns. And you can actually feel the difference. You can feel the before and then you can feel the after, and you're like, wow, that really smoothed that out. So you're gonna see those little tiny items. Also Scotch-Brite for inside of the bushing, or emery cloth. You can use either. Scotch-Brite works fine too. There's a lot of different grades of Scotch-Brite that work fantastic for that. Now, if you have your barrel ion bonded, generally the outside will only have ion bond. There'll be very little on the inside, okay? You gotta remember, when ion bond's done in a vacuum chamber, it's pretty much the finish is applied at a line of sight. It's not in a tank or a bath, so that, you know, it's very difficult to get things down inside the barrels and things of that nature. So, you know, that's going to be pretty much primarily on the outside. If we're gonna nitro carb the barrel, it will be inside and out total. It'll be totally done. So generally, when I get the barrel back from any of those finishes, I'm going to recondition the feed ramp for sure. If it's if it's a standard barrel, I'm going to do the feed lips, and you will sometimes wear off some of the finish and bring it back down to the base material, which is commonplace. It's not going to hurt anything, but you definitely want to tune that. Generally, the inside, we have our barrel hones, which we'll show you a close-up of that later. Our barrel hones, which I just run on an electric drill and hone the chamber again to make sure that's smooth and nicely done. And then that's really about it on the barrels that you really have to do when it comes back. So we'll show you some close-ups of some of these other tools that, so you can see what's really going on there. Black oxide. Generally, if you do black oxide, again, adds virtually nothing to the surface of the material. It actually etches down into the material. So the black oxide generally will not cause any issues at all. Sometimes, again, if you're matting all your parts and you have a rough matte texture, then again, you want to look at it like, okay, I might want to polish my extractor a little bit more. I might want to polish the barrel up a little bit more. I might want to polish the breech face a little bit more, and maybe the inside of the barrel bushing here slightly. And again, most of that is not due to the finish. It's due to the parts preparation before the finish. Most of your finishes, such as your nitrocarburizing, your ion bonds, your chromes, and that, you can do some higher gloss finishes if that's what you want. Sometimes they're a little bit picky. The finishes are picky with higher gloss finishes. So, the reject rate is a lot higher. Most people want the matte finish on most of this. So you are going to be doing a glass bead or an oxide bead finish, some type of sandblasting before the parts end up getting their coating and that done. So depending on the size of the grit that you're using, will determine how matte that'll be, how rough the surface is going to be, and again, that's to your liking. Pretty much everybody's different liking of how they like the matte to look. So, all right, guys. Well, that's pretty much it on what you should look at after finishing. Again, if you have any comments, questions, list them below. We appreciate you watching. Have a great day from the Fusion Firearms family.